The rain hadn't stopped in 3 days. It swept across the small border town of Las Cruces, New Mexico, washing the dust from the cracked streets and blurring the desert horizon into a watercolor of rust and blue. The neon sign of El Camino Motel flickered weakly against the storm, its red letters half dead, casting a ghostly pulse through the curtain of rain. Inside room 12, a man woke up gasping for air. His breath came ragged, his shirt clinging to his chest with sweat. The room smelled of whiskey and bleach. A cracked mirror on the wall reflected the tremor in his hands, the bandage wrapped around his shoulder, the blood seeping through it. He looked at himself like a stranger. "Who the hell am I?" he whispered, his voice hoarse, barely more than a breath. The man's wallet sat open on the bedside table. No ID. Just a folded photo. A woman with auburn hair standing in front of a white farmhouse, smiling at the camera, sunlight caught in her eyes. He didn't recognize her, but something about that smile punched through his chest like déjà vu. He felt his throat tighten. Outside, thunder rolled. The motel door creaked open, and a woman stepped inside, shaking rain from her jacket. She froze when she saw him sitting upright in bed. Her hand tightened around the gun at her hip. "You're awake," she said quietly. He blinked, studying her. She couldn't have been more than 30. Leather jacket, jeans, the glint of a badge on her belt. But her eyes, they held something softer beneath the steel. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice unsteady. She hesitated, the rain whispering against the window between them. "You don't remember, do you?" He shook his head. She sighed, lowering the gun but not holstering it. "Name's Isabel Hart. Sheriff of Dona Ana County. You were found 2 nights ago, unconscious on Route 28. No ID, no car. Just a bullet wound and a lot of questions." He glanced at his shoulder. The pain flared like a warning. "Who shot me?" "That's what I was hoping you could tell me." He swallowed hard, trying to pull threads from the darkness in his mind. Flashes of headlights, desert wind, the scent of gunpowder. And then nothing. Isabel studied him for a long moment. Her voice softened. "You're lucky you're alive. Whoever left you out there wanted you dead." He looked down at the photo again. "This woman, do you know her?" Isabel's face went pale. Her lips parted slightly before she caught herself. "Where did you get that?" "It was in my pocket." She reached for it, her fingers trembling slightly before she pulled back. "No, keep it." He frowned. "You know her." Isabel turned away, crossing her arms. The stormlight from the window painted her silhouette in silver and shadow. Her name was Lena Moore. She used to live about 20 miles from here. "Used to. She's dead." The words landed like a blade. He didn't know why, but his chest ached. Not the kind of pain that comes from shock, but the kind that feels like loss. "How did she die?" "Car accident," Isabel said. "Too quickly. Too cleanly." He leaned back against the headboard, his mind spinning. Every instinct told him she was lying. The next morning, the rain had turned to mist. The desert shimmered beneath the rising sun, the air heavy with petrichor. The man, still nameless, sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring at his reflection in the mirror. The wound on his shoulder throbbed. Beneath the pain there was something else, a restlessness, a pressure, like something inside him wanted out. A name echoed faintly in his head. "Elias." He whispered it under his breath, testing it. Felt right. When Isabel returned with a tray of food and a thermos of coffee, she found him fully dressed, his eyes sharp now. "Elias," he said. "That's my name." She stopped in the doorway. "You're sure?" "Not completely," he admitted. "But it feels familiar." She set the tray down. "Then Elias it is." He studied her carefully. "You've been watching me since I woke up." "Why?" Her jaw tightened. "Because something about you doesn't add up. The wound, the missing ID, the way you look at me like you're trying to remember a lie. You're not some lost tourist." "And what am I?" Isabel hesitated. "That's what I'm trying to find out." Later that day, while Isabel took a call in the sheriff's SUV, Elias stepped outside the motel. The sun had broken through the clouds, gleaming off the puddles. The desert smelled alive again. A group of migrant workers passed by on the road, one of them glancing at Elias with recognition. "Señor Cruz," the man called. Elias turned sharply. "What did you say?" The man froze, then backed away quickly. "Nothing. Sorry, Cruz." The name hit him like a shockwave. When Isabel returned, she saw his face, pale, shaken. "What happened?" "Someone called me Cruz." Her expression changed, a flash of something like fear. "Cruz? Yeah. Means something to you." She didn't answer. She just looked at him for a long time, her breath catching in her throat. "You need to stay here," she said finally. "Promise me." But Elias didn't. That night, while the desert wind whispered through the motel's broken sign, he slipped out. The old highway stretched endlessly toward the horizon. The moon lit the sand in silver. Elias walked for miles until he reached a rusted gate marked Moore Ranch. Private property. His heartbeat quickened. The same white farmhouse from the photo stood at the end of a dirt road, its windows dark. He pushed through the gate. The wood groaned. Every step toward the house brought flickers of something. Lena's laughter, her hand brushing his cheek, her whisper in his ear. "Don't do this, Elias. Please." He froze at the porch. The door creaked open before he touched it. Isabel stood there, a lantern in her hand. "I told you not to come here," she said softly. His voice trembled. "This place. I've been here before." "Yes," she whispered. "You have." The wind picked up, scattering dust across the porch. "Who was I, Isabel?" She met his eyes, and for the first time the wall she kept around herself cracked. "You were Elias Cruz, leader of the Sinaloa corridor, the most dangerous cartel along this border. You weren't supposed to survive that ambush." He stepped back as if struck. The name, the weight of it, filled the empty spaces in his head like poison. "And Lena?" he asked, voice breaking. "Who was she to me?" Isabel's eyes glistened with tears she refused to let fall. "The woman you were sent to kill." Silence. The desert wind howled through the fields. "But you didn't," she continued, voice trembling. "You fell in love with her instead." He felt the world tilt. The memory hit him. Lena's face, her scream, the flash of headlights, the gunshot. Then darkness. "Where is she?" he whispered. Isabel's voice broke at last. "She's gone, Elias. She's gone because of you." The lantern flickered between them, painting her tears in gold. Elias sank to his knees, gripping the porch rail like a drowning man. "Then why save me?" Isabel stared at him, her jaw trembling. "Because she was my sister." And in that moment, under the cold desert moon, Elias realized that his past hadn't just found him. It had been standing in front of him all along. The morning after the storm broke with a silence so deep it almost felt like morning. The desert shimmered under a pale blue sky, stretching endlessly beyond the low hills that framed Las Cruces. Isabel stood at the window of her small adobe house, a mug of coffee cooling in her hands, watching the wind move across the mesquite trees. She hadn't slept. The image of Elias kneeling on her sister's porch haunted her, the look in his eyes when the truth finally landed. Guilt, confusion, maybe even love. She didn't know what she hated more, that he was alive or that part of her was relieved he was. Outside, the sound of a pickup truck drew closer. She turned, her pulse quickening, then stilled. It wasn't him. Just one of her deputies, stopping by to drop off the morning reports. She exhaled, steadying herself. When she'd found Elias 2 nights ago bleeding on that lonely stretch of highway, she hadn't recognized him at first. The beard, the wound, the blood. But when she saw his eyes, those dark, sharp eyes that had once stared at her from a police file marked wanted, Elias Cruz, she froze. The man who'd destroyed her sister's life was lying helpless in her jurisdiction. And instead of finishing what she'd sworn she would one day do, she saved him. She'd told herself it was duty, humanity. But deep down she knew better. Lena had loved him once. And Isabel wanted to understand why. Elias woke to the scent of dust and old wood. He was back in the sheriff's guest room, sunlight cutting through the blinds in thin, trembling lines. The pain in his shoulder was dull now, but the ache in his chest had only deepened. He remembered flashes of Lena, her laughter in the desert wind, the way she touched his face as if she knew he was already halfway to hell. He remembered her begging him to walk away from the cartel. He remembered not listening. And then, headlights, gunfire, the sound of her scream. He sat up, gripping the sheets. He didn't remember pulling the trigger. He didn't even know if he had. But her blood had been on his hands, one way or another. He stood, walked to the window. Isabel's patrol truck sat in the driveway, glinting under the morning sun. She was out there somewhere, the woman whose life he'd destroyed without even knowing it. And yet she had saved him. Why? He needed answers. By noon, Isabel was back at the station. The old brick building hummed with a low murmur of radios and the occasional clang of a filing cabinet. Her deputy, Raymond Carter, a tall man with a crooked smile and eyes that had seen too much, leaned against her desk. "You sure it's smart keeping him around?" he asked. "I didn't have much of a choice," Isabel replied, sorting through a stack of paperwork she wasn't reading. "He's got no memory. Until we know what happened, he's a victim." Ray snorted. "A victim? Isabel, that man ran guns across 3 states. Has been after him for years. If they find out he's here." "They won't," she cut in, sharper than she intended. Ray studied her. "You're playing with fire." She looked up at him, her voice quieter now. "I already got burned once." Ray's gaze softened. "Lena." She nodded. The name was still a wound. Before Ray could say more, a voice came from the doorway. "Sheriff." Isabel turned. Elias stood there, clean-shaven now, wearing one of Ray's old shirts. He looked almost normal. But his eyes still carried that storm. "I need to talk to you," he said. Ray stiffened. Isabel gestured for him to leave. "Give us a minute." When the room was empty, she crossed her arms. "You shouldn't be here." "I need to know what really happened," Elias said. "To Lena. To me." She hesitated. "You already know." "I don't," he said, voice cracking slightly. "All I have are pieces. And you're holding the rest." Isabel stared at him for a long moment, then turned away. "There are things you don't want to remember. Try me." She walked to a drawer and pulled out an old case file. She placed it on the desk between them. A photograph slipped free. Lena, smiling, sunlight in her hair. Elias's chest tightened. "You met her 2 years ago," Isabel said. "You came here pretending to be someone else, a ranch buyer, a quiet man from El Paso. She believed you. So did I. For months you lived here. You fixed her fence, helped with her horses, ate dinner in this town like you belonged." Elias swallowed hard. "I remember pieces of that. But not the end." "You were sent to kill her," Isabel said quietly. She'd witnessed a drop on the wrong side of the border. She didn't even know what she'd seen. But your boss, Arturo Vargas, thought she'd talked to the DEA. Elias's stomach turned. "So I was supposed to silence her." "But you didn't," Isabel continued. "You fell for her instead. And when Vargas found out, he came after both of you." Her voice trembled now. "You tried to protect her, Elias. But it was chaos that night. Shots fired. Tires screeching. Lena's truck went off the road and caught fire. Elias's breath caught. I didn't kill her." Isabel met his eyes. "Not directly. But you brought it to her door." Silence filled the space between them, the kind of silence that suffocates. Finally Elias spoke. "You should have let me die." She looked at him, eyes shining but unbroken. "Maybe. But you're alive for a reason. And I want to know what it is." That night the wind returned. The desert sky burned violet and gold as the sun sank beyond the hills. Isabel drove back toward her ranch, her thoughts tangled and raw. Every mile closer to home, she felt the pull of memory. Her sister's laughter echoing in the kitchen, the smell of fresh bread, the sound of an old country song drifting from the porch. When she pulled into the driveway, the porch light was on. Elias was sitting there, staring out at the horizon. "I told you not to leave town," she said, stepping out of the truck. "I didn't," he replied. "Just needed some air." She joined him on the steps. The silence stretched between them, heavy but not unbearable. "Do you ever think about her?" he asked quietly. "Every day." He nodded slowly. "I don't remember everything, but I remember her eyes. How she looked at me like I was worth saving." He paused. "She was wrong." Isabel turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. "She wasn't." He looked at her, then really looked. The anger, the guilt, the exhaustion. And beneath it something else. Something fragile and real. "I wish I could change it," he said. "You can't," she replied. "But you can decide what kind of man you're going to be now." The wind stirred the dust around their feet. The desert smelled of rain again, though no clouds had formed. Elias nodded, eyes dark with resolve. "Then I need to find Vargas." Isabel froze. "Don't be stupid. He's the reason she's dead. The reason I became this. If he's still out there, he won't stop until he knows I'm gone for good." "Then let me handle it," Isabel said. The law can't touch him," Elias interrupted. "You know that." She looked at him, jaw tight. "You step into that world again, you won't come back." He stood, the last light of sunset painting his face in gold and shadow. "Maybe I'm not supposed to." Before she could stop him, he walked down the dirt road, his figure fading into the crimson horizon. And as the night swallowed him whole, Isabel felt the first chill of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Fear. Not of him, but of losing him too. The desert doesn't forget. It keeps its ghosts buried under sand and silence, waiting for the wind to stir them loose. 3 nights had passed since Elias vanished into the red canyons west of Las Cruces. Isabel hadn't slept more than a few hours. Every road she patrolled, every bar she checked, every call she answered, she kept seeing him in the corner of her mind, walking toward death as if it were something he'd earned. But the part that terrified her most wasn't that he was gone. It was that she wanted him to come back. Elias drove north along a stretch of forgotten highway, a rental car he'd stolen from a repair lot rumbling beneath him. The road bled into the desert, endless, sun-warped, the heat trembling in the air. He'd found an address scribbled on the back of an old envelope buried inside his jacket. Alamogordo, New Mexico. El Rinson Bar. He didn't remember writing it, but his gut told him it mattered. By the time he reached the town, the sun had melted into copper. El Rinson stood on the edge of a dirt road, half lit by a flickering sign. The air reeked of beer and engine oil. Inside, the jukebox played an old George Strait song, soft and lonely. He ordered a whiskey, watched the bartender, a wiry man with tattoos creeping up his neck, and waited. When the man looked up and saw his face, he froze. The glass in his hand shattered. "Cruz," he whispered. "You're supposed to be dead." Elias's heart quickened. "Guess not." The man glanced around, lowering his voice. "If Vargas finds out, that's what I'm counting on." A shadow crossed the bartender's eyes. "You don't understand. He thinks you betrayed him, that you ran with the girl instead of finishing the job. He put a price on your head the minute the car exploded." Elias gritted his teeth. "So he's alive." "Very much," the man said. "And meaner than ever." He moved operations out near the Organ Mountains, ranch outside the old copper mine. Elias stared into his drink, his reflection fractured in the amber light. "Then that's where I'm going." The bartender shook his head. "You walk in there, you won't walk out." Elias's eyes lifted slowly. "That's the idea." Back in Las Cruces, Isabel sat at her kitchen table with Lena's old journal open in front of her. The pages were soft, the ink faded. She'd read them so many times she knew the words by heart, But tonight one passage struck her differently. He looks at me like he's afraid to breathe. Like every word I say might save him or destroy him. I don't know who he really is, but when I'm near him, I forget that I'm supposed to be afraid. Isabel closed her eyes, clutching the notebook to her chest. She understood that now. The pull between love and ruin, the ache of wanting someone who could shatter you. The phone rang. She snatched it up. Sheriff Hart. Was. Then a voice she hadn't heard in years. Rough, gravelly, cold. Your sister's man is alive, the voice said. And he's coming for Vargas. Her blood turned to ice. Who is this? But the line went dead. Elias reached the foothills near the copper mine just before midnight. The moon hung low, pale as bone. The Vargas compound loomed in the distance, a cluster of floodlit buildings surrounded by barbed wire and armed guards. He moved silently through the shadows, every instinct still sharp despite the hole in his memory. The smell of oil, gunpowder, and damp earth filled the air. Somewhere inside those walls was the man who'd made him a monster. He crept along the perimeter until he reached a side fence. He was halfway over when a voice behind him said, "Don't." Elias spun, gun drawn, but froze. Isabel stood there, the wind whipping through her hair, her badge glinting in the moonlight. "How did you find me?" he hissed. "You're not hard to track when you steal from my town," she said, her voice tight. "Get in the car, Elias. Now." He shook his head. "You shouldn't be here. And you shouldn't be alive," she shot back. "But here we are." The guard lights swept closer. She grabbed his arm, pulling him into the cover of a rock ridge. "You think you're going to walk in there and get revenge? That's suicide." "This isn't about revenge," he said. "It's about ending it. You can't end something that started with blood." He turned toward her, voice low. "I can try." Her hand trembled as she reached for him. "Please, Elias. Don't make me watch you die too." For a moment, the desert disappeared. The guards, the guns, the shadows. It was just her voice, soft and breaking, the same tone Lena had used in his fading memories. He looked at her, the woman who had every reason to hate him but still came for him. And then, for the first time since the night he lost everything, he let himself feel it. Pull. The impossible tenderness that felt like punishment and mercy all at once. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You shouldn't care about me." "I know," she whispered. "But I do." He leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. The world held its breath. Then the silence shattered. Gunfire erupted from the ridge above. Isabel hit the ground, dragging him with her as bullets tore through the rocks. A spotlight swung across the desert. "They know we're here," she shouted. Elias returned fire, his aim instinctive, precise. 2 guards went down before the rest scattered back toward the compound. He grabbed Isabel's hand. "We need to move." They sprinted through the ravine, ducking behind an old truck. Dust rose around them in clouds. Isabel's heart pounded so hard she thought it would break through her ribs. "Who told them?" she asked. Elias reloaded, jaw clenched. "Someone wants me dead before I reach Vargas." "Someone," she said. "Or everyone." He didn't answer. The headlights of approaching vehicles cut through the dark, a convoy of black SUVs racing toward the mine. Elias turned to her, his expression unreadable. "You need to go. I'm not leaving you." He smiled faintly, a ghost of the man he might have been. "You already lost one person you loved because of me. Don't make it 2. Before she could argue, he pressed something into her hand, a small silver locket. She looked down. Inside was a photo of Lena. "She wore that the day she died," he said softly. "I kept it because I couldn't let go. But it was never mine to keep." Her throat tightened. "Elias." He touched her face, his fingers trembling. "If I don't come back." "Don't you dare finish that sentence," she whispered, tears burning behind her eyes. But he only smiled, stepped back, and disappeared into the darkness. From the ridge, Isabel watched as the Vargas compound erupted in chaos, gunfire flashing like lightning, explosions echoing through the canyon. The air smelled of metal and fire. She wanted to run to him, but her legs wouldn't move. Somewhere inside those flames was the man she'd saved, the man she was supposed to hate, the man who had once loved her sister, and now, somehow, was pulling her heart into the same abyss. Then, through the smoke, she saw him. Elias walking toward the main building, blood on his sleeve, firelight in his eyes. And in that moment, Isabel understood what terrified her most. Elias Cruz didn't just want to kill Vargas. He wanted to remember everything, even if it destroyed him. The desert was burning. The night sky above the Organ Mountains glowed red from the fires consuming Vargas's compound. The smell of gasoline and dust clung to the air like memory. Thick, choking, impossible to escape. Elias moved through the smoke like a ghost, half alive, half dead. The gun in his hand felt heavier with each shot, each breath. Every face he saw was a reflection of the man he'd been, the killer Vargas made him into. And every life he took to reach the main house felt like another step backward into hell. He didn't care anymore. The past was already claiming him. Inside, Vargas waited. Isabel watched from a ridge 200 yards away. Her rifle trained on the chaos below. She'd called for backup. State police, anyone who would listen. But the radio was full of static, and the canyon walls swallowed her signal. Every explosion twisted her gut tighter. She couldn't see him anymore. She wanted to believe he was still alive, that he was fighting his way through this madness for something more than revenge. But deep down, she knew Elias Cruz had come here to die. She slammed the rifle down, her breath sharp. Damn it, Elias. Without another thought, she ran for her truck. Inside the main house, Vargas sat at his desk. His white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, cigar smoke curling around his head. The walls trembled from the explosions outside. He didn't flinch. When Elias burst through the door, covered in ash and blood, Vargas smiled faintly. "I thought I buried you," he said in a slow, rasping voice. "You should have stayed dead." Elias raised his gun. "Maybe I should have." Vargas leaned back, unbothered. "Do you even remember what you were to me, mi hijo? You were family. You were my right hand. You made me a murderer," Elias said. "I made you powerful," Vargas corrected. "But you threw it away, for a woman." Elias's voice dropped to a growl. "Don't say her name." Vargas laughed, a low, bitter sound. "Lena Moore. The farmer's daughter who thought love could save a man like you. Do you know what she said to me when I found her that night?" Elias's hand shook. "You were there." Vargas smiled coldly. "Of course I was. You failed me. Someone had to finish what you couldn't." The world stopped moving. Elias lowered the gun slightly, his pulse pounding in his ears. "What did you do?" "She begged," Vargas said simply. "For your life. Not hers." The shot came so fast it didn't sound real. Just a flash of light, the smell of smoke, and Vargas's body slumped forward across the desk. Elias stood there, the gun still raised, breathing hard. The weight in his chest didn't lift. Sank deeper. 'Cause now he remembered everything. The night of the ambush. Vargas's men surrounding the farmhouse. Lena screaming as he tried to pull her out of the burning truck. Her last words before the flames swallowed her. Don't become him. He'd already failed her. Outside, Isabel skidded to a stop as the main house exploded in a wave of orange fire. The blast knocked her backward, the heat washing over her like a furnace. "Elias!" she screamed, but the roar of flames drowned her voice. Through the fire, a shadow stumbled into view. Elias, coughing, blood streaked across his face. He collapsed against a wall that was no longer there, his silhouette outlined by the inferno behind him. She ran to him, ignoring the heat, the danger, everything but the need to reach him. When she got close, he looked up. His eyes were wild, pain, shock, relief. "You shouldn't have come," he rasped. "Neither should you," she shot back, dropping to her knees beside him. "Come on. We have to move before this whole place comes down." He didn't move. It's done. She shook her head. It's not done until we walk out of here alive. His hand closed around her wrist, weak but steady. Vargas is dead. Then let that be enough. He gave a faint, broken smile. It'll never be enough. The roof above them groaned. Isabel pulled him to his feet, half carrying him toward the open desert. Every step felt like an eternity. The heat scorched her lungs, the world a blur of smoke and light. When they finally reached the edge of the compound, Elias collapsed again, gasping. She fell beside him, coughing. Elias! He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Old, singed, half-burned. He pressed it into her hand. What is this? She asked. Proof, he whispered. Vargas wasn't just running guns. He was working with someone. Inside your department. She froze. What? Someone who fed him intel. Someone who gave him your sister's address. Her breath caught. That's not possible. But deep down, something inside her broke, because she remembered now. The night Lena died, the call she'd made to the sheriff's office. How someone had promised to send help. How no one ever came. Elias's eyes flickered. You were never meant to find me on that road. They wanted me gone. The sound of sirens echoed faintly in the distance, the world finally catching up to them. Isabel gripped his hand. Who was it? Who betrayed her? But Elias was fading fast. His voice barely a whisper. Check the file. Nim. Ray. And then he went still. No, she said, shaking him. No, Elias, stay with me. The sirens grew louder, red and blue lights flashing across the desert. Please, she whispered. Don't do this. Not now. But he didn't answer. His hand fell limp in hers. His eyes half open to the burning sky. Isabel pressed her forehead against his chest, her tears mixing with the ash. The night hummed with the sound of fire and sirens, the living and the dead meeting in one final breath. And then, through the haze, she saw something glint in his jacket pocket, a small memory card, half melted but intact. She pulled it free, clutching it tight. Raymond Carter, her most trusted deputy, her only friend. The world tilted. The betrayal settled in her bones like frost. As the first responders pulled her away from the wreckage, she looked back one last time. The desert wind swept across Elias's body, lifting the ashes into the starlit sky. He was gone. But he'd left her the truth. And Isabel's heart wasn't done yet. Dawn bled slowly across the desert, pale gold against the blackened ruins of Vargas's empire. The air was cold now, eerily quiet. Only the hum of engines and the murmur of federal agents disturbed the silence that hung over the Organ Mountains. Isabel stood apart from them all. Her clothes were torn, her face streaked with soot, her eyes red from smoke and grief. She hadn't spoken since they pulled her from the wreckage. The medics kept asking questions. She just stared at the horizon. The sun rose behind her, casting her shadow long and thin across the sand, the shadow of a woman who had lost everything twice. In her hand, she still held the small, melted memory card she'd found in Elias's jacket. The last thing he'd ever given her. By noon, the DEA field office in Las Cruces buzzed with tension. Agents moved briskly between glass-walled rooms, folders in hand, murmuring about the Hart incident, the Vargas fire, a missing asset. Isabel sat in a chair across from Agent Keller, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a colder voice. The memory card rested on the table between them. Where did you find this? Keller asked. On Elias Cruz's body, Isabel said flatly. Keller tapped a pen against her notebook. You understand how serious this is, Sheriff. That man was a federal target for 8 years. His death creates complications. He's not the only complication, Isabel replied, her voice tightening. Play the file. Keller nodded to a technician, who slotted the damaged card into a reader. Static flickered across the screen, followed by distorted video. Then a familiar voice filled the room. Shipment confirmed. Drop coordinates match. Lena Moore's location verified. She's alone. Send crews. Isabel froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The voice was unmistakable. Raymond Carter. Keller's pen stilled. That's your deputy. Isabel's eyes burned. Was. The screen went black. Keller leaned back, studying her. If this is real, we'll need you to testify. You're the only surviving witness with first-hand contact with crews. Isabel's jaw tightened. He wasn't what you think. Keller raised a brow. He was a cartel lieutenant. He was a man trying to make it right, Isabel said softly. He saved me. He could have run, he didn't. Keller exhaled. You're too close to this, Sheriff. We'll take it from here. But Isabel wasn't listening anymore. She was already on her feet. The sun was setting by the time she reached the old sheriff's station. It looked smaller now. Tired, hollow, like a part of her that had already died. Ray's car was parked out front. She stepped inside, her boots echoing on the tile. The place smelled of coffee and paper. He was there, standing by her desk, a file in his hands, his expression carefully neutral. Isabel, he said quietly. You look like hell. She didn't answer. She just walked toward him, eyes locked on his. You were working with Vargas, she said. He didn't deny it. Why? She demanded, her voice breaking. You sold us out. You sent my sister to her death. Ray sighed, setting the file down. You don't understand how deep this runs. Vargas owned half the border. DA, local law, feds. All of them were in his pocket. I was trying to survive. By giving him Lena. He looked away. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. He said he just wanted to scare her. Get her to back off. I didn't know he'd send crews. Isabel stepped closer, trembling with rage. You knew exactly what you were doing. Ray's voice hardened. And what about you, huh? You think you're clean. You saved the devil himself. You dragged him into your home. You let him make you feel something for a murderer. Her hand went to her holster. You don't get to say his name. Ray took a step forward. He killed people, Izzy. Dozens. Lena's blood was on his hands long before that night. Tears blurred her vision. And yet he died trying to make it right. You're still breathing like nothing happened. His tone turned cold. You're not walking out of here with that card. The silence between them snapped taut as wire. Then he drew his gun. Isabel moved first. 2 shots cracked through the empty station. One hit the wall. The other found him, just below the shoulder. Ray staggered backward, eyes wide, the gun clattering from his hand. You're making a mistake, he gasped. No, she said softly. I'm fixing one. He slumped to the floor, blood seeping into the linoleum. She stared at him for a long moment, breathing hard, then walked past him without looking back. That night, the desert was quiet again. No fires, no sirens, just the sound of the wind moving through the sagebrush. Isabel parked her truck beside the ruins of the old Moore Ranch. The ashes had long since cooled, but the house still stood in pieces. Blackened beams, a single wall, a rusted windmill spinning lazily above it. She sat on the porch, holding the locket Elias had given her. Inside was Lena's picture. The silver was bent and scorched from the fire, but the image remained untouched. Her sister's smile, frozen in sunlight. I did it, Isabel whispered. He's gone. Vargas is gone. Ray's gone. It's over. The words sounded hollow in the night. She looked up at the stars, the same stars that had hung above them that night, the same light that had watched her lose everything. And then she heard it. Soft engine far away. Headlights appeared on the dirt road. A single vehicle, moving slow, deliberate. Her heart stuttered. The truck rolled to a stop 20 yards away. The door opened. A man stepped out. Lean. His left arm bandaged. His movements careful but alive. For a long moment she couldn't breathe. He walked closer, the light catching his face. Tired, scarred but unmistakable. Elias. He stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. his voice low, rough from smoke and silence. "You thought I was dead. I saw you," she began, but her voice broke. "I was," he said simply. "For a while." He sat on the step below her, staring out at the horizon. Neither spoke. The night felt impossibly still, as if the whole desert was holding its breath. Finally she whispered, "Why did you come back?" He turned toward her. "Because you were the only thing that ever made me want to live." Tears filled her eyes. "You can't stay here. The DA will. They think I'm gone," he said. "Let them." She studied him, the scars, the exhaustion, the quiet beneath his words. He wasn't the man she'd met in that motel anymore. He was something else. A man who'd walked through hell and come back with his soul barely intact. "What now?" she asked softly. Elias looked at her, a faint, weary smile on his lips. "We start over. Somewhere no one knows us. Somewhere the past can't find us." Isabel's throat tightened. "There's no such place." He reached for her hand, his touch warm, steady. "Then we'll make one." For a long moment she didn't move. Then she laced her fingers through his. The wind shifted. The stars burned brighter. They sat in silence until the first light of dawn touched the horizon. Two broken souls in the ruins of everything they'd lost, daring to believe in something like peace. But as the sunlight crept across the dirt road, it glinted off something buried in the dust near the porch. A small silver badge. Sheriff Raymond Carter. And beneath it, faint tire tracks leading away from the station. Isabel's heart went cold. She turned toward Elias, eyes wide. "He's not dead." Elias followed her gaze, the tracks disappearing toward the mountains. He stood slowly, the dawn lighting the scars on his face. "Then it isn't over." And as the desert wind rose once more, carrying the scent of dust and fire, the two of them stood together. Not as sheriff and outlaw, not as enemies or lovers, but as the only survivors of a story that refused to die. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. And the past began to move again. The snow melted early that year. The rivers ran fat with thawed ice, carving paths through the valleys like veins under pale skin. From the heights of the Blue Ridge, the Vandal estate looked reborn. Cleaner, quieter, the great stone mansion washed of its blood and grief. But inside nothing was clean. Nothing was quiet. Clara woke every night to the sound of footsteps pacing outside her door. Sometimes she caught a glimpse of him through the crack. The new Alpha, the hollow wolf. His shadow flickering across the hall like a ghost. Sometimes she heard him whispering to himself in a voice that wasn't entirely his own. And sometimes she swore she heard his father's voice whisper back. The pack had changed since Gareth's death. The elders bowed to Eli's strength, but not to his light. They met in secret, muttering about purity and betrayal. Wolves who once served the Alpha King now stared at their new leader with unease. Rumors spread like frost over glass. That the hollow power was unnatural. That Eli's blood burned too bright. That one day soon the light would consume him and everything around him. And maybe they weren't wrong. Clara saw it first. The tremors in his hands. The sudden flashes in his eyes. The moments when his breath came in short, ragged bursts as if something inside him was fighting to get out. First he brushed it off. "I can control it," he said. "It's just residue." But she could feel the truth beneath his calm. Every time he used his power, to heal, to command, to protect, the light grew darker. Like it was feeding on him. One evening, Clara found him in the East Wing, standing before the broken mirror where his father had died. The moonlight painted his reflection in white fire. "You're losing yourself," she whispered. He didn't turn. "Maybe that's the point." "Don't say that." His voice was low, hollow. "Do you know what it feels like to carry someone else's heartbeat inside you? To wake up every day and wonder which one of you is in control?" Clara stepped closer. "You're still you." He looked at her then, and she saw it. His pupils glowing faintly gold beneath the white. His father's color. "No," he said quietly. "I'm not." A tremor shook the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. Somewhere outside, wolves began to howl, long, mournful, desperate. Clara grabbed his hand. "You're scaring them." "I should," he said. "If I can't stop this, I'll become worse than he ever was. Then let me help." He smiled faintly, sadness softening his face. "You already did. You gave me something to fight for. Then fight." He looked away, toward the forest. "There's a ritual in my mother's book. A way to break the curse completely." Clara frowned. "Then why haven't you done it?" "Because it requires a sacrifice." Her heart sank. "What kind of sacrifice?" He turned to her, his expression breaking. "The one who awakened the hollow blood in me." She froze. "Eli, no. It's the only way." "You're not killing me," she said, her voice shaking. His eyes filled with tears. "Clara, it wouldn't be killing you. It would be setting me free." "Then I'll live with your curse," she whispered fiercely. "I don't care how dark it gets. You're not doing this." For the first time in weeks, he stepped toward her, cupping her face in his trembling hands. "You don't understand. If I lose control, I could destroy everyone here. Pack. Everything." Her breath caught. "Then I'll stay until you don't." "Clara, I said I'm not leaving you." He pressed his forehead to hers, his voice breaking. "I love you." The words were quiet, raw, and final. She closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Then love me enough to live." That night the storm came. Lightning tore across the sky, shaking the mountains. Wolves howled from the ridges, their cries echoing through the forest like a lament. Clara woke to the smell of smoke, the air electric with energy. Ran. The light was pouring from the manor's windows, blinding, alive. The walls shook. The air vibrated with the sound of 1,000 heartbeats. "Eli!" she screamed, pushing through the doors. He stood in the great hall, surrounded by spirals of white flame. The sigil of the hollow burned into the floor, pulsing like a living heart. His body glowed brighter than ever before. His eyes pure light. "You can't stop it," he said when he saw her. His voice was layered. His and his father's and something ancient underneath. "It's too late." She stepped forward, the heat searing her skin. "You can fight it. You always could." He shook his head, trembling. "If I don't let it burn out, it'll spread. The mountain, the town, it'll all go." "Then let me share it," she said, stepping closer. "No," his voice cracked. "You'll die. Then we die together." He stared at her, agony in every line of his face. "You were never supposed to love me," he whispered. "Too late for that." And before he could stop her, she reached for him. Their hands met in the center of the burning sigil. The world exploded in light. For a moment, everything, fire, pain, thunder, ceased. There was only silence. Then a voice. Soft, feminine, familiar. "Anna. You've done it, my son," the voice whispered through the air. "You've ended the curse." The light faded. The sigil stopped pulsing. Clara fell to the ground, the force throwing her backward. Smoke rose around her, her ears ringing. When her vision cleared, Eli was gone. The hall was empty, the air still. Only the faint scent of pine and ash lingered. She called his name again and again, until her throat went raw. No answer. Weeks passed. The pack rebuilt. The snow melted into spring. Clara stayed, tending the house, caring for those who remained. The elders named her caretaker of the Hollow's legacy, the one human who had stood with the Alpha until the end. But at night, she would go to the edge of the forest, where the mist hung low over the pines, and listen. And sometimes, on the quietest nights, she would hear it. A low, familiar growl carried by the wind. A soft voice whispering her name. And when the moon rose new and pale, a white wolf would appear at the treeline, its eyes glowing silver, its fur like mist. It never came closer, but it always watched her. And every time she whispered, "Eli," the wind would stir, gentle and warm, brushing her cheek like a hand she could almost feel. One spring night, as fireflies floated over the fields, she found something waiting by the door. A single white feather, glimmering faintly in the dark. She smiled through her tears. Some curses break in blood. Others in love. And some, she realized, never break at all. They just learn to live in the light.